And evidently, we are now live. So hopefully some people are catching up. I know that they tend to show an ad at the beginning of this. I see Whispers said they'll have to catch it later. Okay, well, thanks for dropping in. Dragon, Helter Skelter, Stewart, Bams, Urban, Helter confirms that I can be seen and heard. Much appreciated. So welcome one and all as we get going here and we make another attempt at another live stream and try not to get into too much trouble, since that seems to be the case most of the time. Been doing more and more of these lately because it has been popular. It has been popular with a lot of the viewers. They like it. And, you know, there's Stacy. Thanks for joining us, Stacy. Try to give the people what they like, right? Is that the idea? Just sharing thoughts, taking a look at the news, things like that. Yeah, let's me misbehave, Stuart says. Well, in my case, I get in trouble with ScrewTube. And I'll make the point, and I've talked about this again. This is now 8 in a row. 8 live streams in a row, I've gotten a strike. However, today I am broadcasting simultaneously on both Coffee Talk and on Prepper University. The last live stream, I did the same thing. I broadcast on Coffee and on the Prepper channel. Coffee got a strike immediately. The Prepper channel did not. Same exact content being broadcast at the exact same time on 2 different channels, but only one of them gets a strike. So if there's something that's being said or done here that is somehow a violation of ScrewTube's standards, why is it reflecting on one channel and not the other? I mean, both channels are getting shadowed anyways, because both of them people can't find. I see Stewart is here. Oh, I saw that already. Judy of the Woods from Wales. Chris says that's messed up. Yes, it is. And Urban says YouTube has chosen their side of history. And Bam says, what do you think about the way Hulk Hogan treats his friend's wife? I don't know. Is Hulk Hogan in trouble again? Maybe if I talked about that, I wouldn't get in trouble. But yeah, 2 different channels, which I'm doing today, and we'll see how that works out. And I'll let you know on the next live stream. And Stuart says watching on both. Thank you. I appreciate that. The views help anyways, I imagine, or they tell you that they do. If the table shakes, it's because I've got Monster here shaking the table and being mischievous. Say hello. Don't attack the camera. He randomly hits things. He was hitting the microphone last time. But yeah, Robin says right is wrong, wrong is right. And Boogers is here. Howdy from the liberal S-hole by the name of Illinois. I used to live in Illinois. I know exactly what you're talking about. I was in Illinois when they took away your rights to own a chicken in Cook County. And then when everybody complained, they sold them back by way of a permit. Nothing changed except that now you pay. Think about it. That's what government does. It takes away your inalienable rights and then sells them back. Uncle, honestly, come on now, goofball. But anyways, yeah, we'll see how that works out. I'm broadcasting on both channels again. I did that last week, the last time I did a live stream, and one channel got a strike and one did not for the exact same identical content being broadcast at the same time. No, do not. Come here. Good Lord. Don't walk on the keyboard. Anyways, yeah, Bam's a salt chicken. And Boogers says they want to leave. I don't blame you. I don't blame you, especially with the property taxes. God forbid you own any property. The property, we stop. The property taxes are horrendous there. But yeah, both of them are shadowed anyways. Both channels are shadowed, and that's evident in the viewership and in notifications anyways. But for some reason, this one gets hit harder with live streams than the other channel does. And go ahead and take a look at some snippets from the news here in a moment. Wanted to point out, again, thank the people that have been helping with the GoFundMe for the stray animals that my wife and I take care of. And I'll read them off again with a correction. It was Ashley, Bernardo, Richard, Charles, Thomas, Moises, Raccoon, Mike, Thomas, Prime, Jimmy, Tristan, John, Keith and family, Robert, Edwin, Andrew, Cletus, Dino, Karen, Jackie. It has an odd spelling and I was mispronouncing it. And Jackie sent a message and said, "Do you mean me?" "Yes, I do, Jackie. I'm sorry." Visa, Edward, and of course Keisha, who she's usually on the live streams, and actually she was sending help for the cats before anyone even recommended trying a GoFundMe. And also whoever sent this. This arrived in the mail today, which is, I can't give it to the outdoor cats, but the indoor cats will love it. Thank you very much, whoever it was that sent this. And if you happen to see the live stream, just say down below that it was you. It is appreciated, absolutely. And I'll post that. That, if anybody is interested, is of course for the stray animals we take care of, or you can use PayPal, or you can use our PO box, as you just saw. But we'll go ahead and we'll start digging into the news, which I guess is why I'm getting in trouble. I guess they don't want you looking stuff that you can just find yourself from any news outlet that is public sourced information. Yeah, just tear the whole place down, Uncle. Uncle Kim, he's actually a very gentle cat. That's the name of the cat that's sitting here, Uncle. He's actually pretty gentle, but because of his size, it's awkward. So everything he does is awkward, and he's very clumsy also. He trips over things and he falls off things because he weighs like 20 pounds, literally. He's always getting into some kind of clumsy mess. But that's why you keep shaking the table, knocking things over. And as you see there, it says fresh spending showdown looms as U.S. Congress returns to Washington. We're doing this again. And this is not really actually new news. This happens all the time, although it happens more often in recent years than it has in the past, that they threaten to shut down the spending. And this is a big okie doke. And I'm going to explain that here in a moment. I'll read a little bit of it. I don't need to read all of this for you to get the point. This is Reuters that is posting this. And are they the ones? Yeah, I like Reuters. They put a poll at the bottom. It says, the Republican-controlled U.S. House of Representatives. Do you even need to point that out? Does it matter who? Because regardless of whether Republicans or Democrats are technically in control, and all the bipartisan lies and nonsense, there's a lot more going on than meets the eye. But anyways, I hate how they point that out. The Democratic-led Senate this week will start to seek the upper hand in spending shutdown that could trigger a government shutdown just months after Congress narrowly avoided default. Hardline Republicans are pushing their leader, House Speaker Kevin McCarthy, to cut budgets below the levels he and Democratic President Joe Biden agreed to a little more than a month ago. But Senate appropriators are aiming for bipartisan deals, all of which point to difficult negotiations ahead as Congress returns from a 2-week July 4th recess. 2 weeks off for July 4th. Most people are lucky if they got the day. Must be nice. And I'm going to target this word, bipartisan. What this tells me is, A, no matter how many different parties there are, there's only 2. 12 parties, it's 2. How many lights are there? Do you see 4 lights or 5? Said Mr. Orwell. Secondly, it alludes to the idea that the party votes the party whether the vote is right or wrong. And so they have to make some kind of a shady deal in order to agree with each other, which is partially true. I don't like that at all. Stever says hello from Mississippi Gulf Coast. It's hot. I bet it is. It's not too bad here today, but it's been raining pretty hard. Bingo says, "What's up? Just got here. What did I miss? Not too much." Flash Frank, good afternoon. Thanks for joining us. Basically, I went on and on thanking people for helping with the GoFundMe, which I posted there. That helps my wife and I take care of the stray animals. We got caught up, especially with veterinary bills and the one cat in particular needing surgery. But now I'm talking about the fresh spending shutdown looming in U.S. Congress and talking about the bipartisan trap in language and essentially how this is done deliberately. I think they fake like they're going to do a shutdown because then they can justify voting to spend more. Because that's essentially what happens, isn't it? They say, oh, we're going to have a shutdown. Oh, we're going to have a government shutdown. And then they take a vote to raise the ceiling, sneak a few extra taxes in there, and then business as usual. This is just an excuse to spend more of your money, is what it is. And it's happening more and more often. You want to spend less? How about the additional $800 million that was authorized for the Ukraine last week, which is what the 6th or 7th package that's been authorized for the Ukraine in the last year? Is that about right? Am I off there? How about you quit doing that? They've already basically lost the war. We're keeping them on life support because secretly they want us drug into it, is what it is. But they don't want to be the one. You know, they want to make it look like Russia's the bad guy. And I have to be careful with my language here on that because, again, Google has warned people not to go against the White House press corps' narrative when talking about that. And Dragon says, and I forget I can do this. That'll make things a little easier. Dragon says thousands of legislation issues are illegal and are not written by legislation at the federal government level or city council state level. No, they're not. But again, all you need is the right signature on the right piece of paper and your whole world is upside down. It's that simple. And I've gone over this quite a bit actually in the last couple of live streams talking about the Supreme Court. The existence of the Supreme Court is proof of that because you have 5 people. All you need is a 5-person majority can shift the direction of the entire country and by default the world, since the U.S. is a superpower, regardless of whatever they decide is constitutional or not. They can flip the whole damn thing. Oh, this is a law now. Screw you. Screw what you think. And then a state can say, no, we're not doing that. We're going to say a law that is contrary to what the Supreme Court says because we don't agree. And then the Supreme Court will say, but we're the Supreme Court and screw you. And then you have a mess on your hands. It's a game that they play to keep us all in the dark. Helter says they're always looking for an excuse to pass anything when they're on recess. They're always doing something, but they're not there to pass bills. Yeah, they're always doing something else. They're always doing something they shouldn't be doing, fighting a cause that doesn't matter. I've brought it up before about the Kansas City Chiefs and how there were people in Congress that were fighting to get them to change their names because it was insulting to the indigenous people there. Actually, it's paying homage to indigenous people because they named their football team after something that they thought was grand. And I remember specifically there was somebody, I can't remember who the heck it was, but somebody went and did interviews with indigenous people in that region in Kansas and asked them, does it bother you they're called the Chiefs, or do you not care? And something like 87% of the people interviewed, indigenous people, Native Indians, said they didn't care. Let them call it the Chiefs. What difference does it make? So what are these congressmen fighting for? Well, they're fighting for something that doesn't matter. It's a non-entity. They're pretending to fight for something that's not important, so they can look like they're doing something, give themselves a pat on the back, and avoid real issues. And there are plenty of them. Then they create a new spending bill and they make it like 96,000 pages, and they hide all kinds of things in there, and it gets passed and nobody knows what the hell's in it. Nobody knows what they're signing or what kind of dirty secrets are in there. And then you get more taxes, you get more regulations, weird laws get passed that you're not aware of, designed to regulate us even further. And that's how it's done, folks. I mean, I could go on and on reading this. It says, do you think Congress will or will not pass all the appropriations bills on time and avoid a partial government shutdown? Of course they will. How interested are you in eating value menu items? Not interested. When shopping for food, what is more important to you, brand or price? Both. Which of the following situations are you currently experiencing or likely to experience in the next 30 days? None of those. Come on. Give me the damn results. No, I don't want to learn that. 16% thinks they'll pass it. This is what I was getting to. 73% says they'll not pass it. And 11 says, I'm not sure. Even if they delay it, it'll get done. That's why I wanted to just take that little quiz really quickly. I like that the quiz is there, but some of the questions they ask you are irrelevant. Basically, they were looking for an opportunity to sell me insurance or something equally as stupid there, which I'm not interested in. Not interested in that at all. But that's what they do. They pretend like they're coming to a crisis. Oh, my God, the government has no more money to spend. What are we going to do? We're going to have to shut down, announce it to the press, go through all that hullabaloo, and then they just authorize themselves to spend more and raise taxes again. Instead of being good stewards of the money, they just take more because they can. It's easy to spend money when it's not theirs. It's something I bring up all the time, and I'm sure all of you are aware of that. And it's a shame that everybody kind of knows this. I mean, there are some people who don't get it or don't want to. They don't want to get it. But most people kind of realize that, and yet it still goes on because they're really kind of helpless to do anything about it. I mean, how do you stop that? How do you stop that? How do you put an end to something like that? Vote them out, because that's the solution that they have for you, is to let your vote count. Only in America, you choose the lawmakers. You choose them. But who chose them from the lineup? This is the problem. One, if voting them out of office worked, there wouldn't be any bad apples in office because they'd all be afraid of losing their jobs. Secondly, their parties choose who's going to run for the big offices. I didn't pick them. I didn't pick these people. When the Democratic Party ran Joe Biden for president, that's not who I would have asked for. They picked it because that's someone they wanted. Everybody that they picked, that the Democratic Party and the Republican Party, everyone that they both got behind, were people in these elections, the big ones, anything from Congress, the president, gubernatorial, mayoral elections, depending upon how big the city is, if it's important, like New York or Los Angeles or Chicago. They choose who you're going to select from. Something I've talked about a lot. Bam says the corruption will not stop, so hardly even worth talking about it. Yeah, it's not going to stop. Urban says it'll only end when they finally run out of other people's money. If that ever actually happens. If that ever actually happens. And that's unfortunate because there'll always be more. Even when if the country is bankrupt, they'll still find a way to get more out of the people. They'll get something out of them. to keep their jobs and to justify themselves and to keep going. But it's a selection okey doke. And I've given the example before. It's like the love and logic parenting model when dealing with children. And I've used the example of a shirt with a child. You've got a little 4 or 5-year-old kid, and you have a red shirt and a blue shirt, and you say, hey, Jimmy, I'm going to let you choose what you're going to wear today. Do you want the red shirt or the blue one? And Jimmy picks the blue one and says, look, I picked my shirt. No, you didn't. Mama picked the shirt because she chose red or blue. You just made a sub decision as a proxy through her decision that she already made for you. And that's what happens with these big elections. They've already been lined up. They already know who they'll deal with, and they hand us their choices to pick from like it's our choice. And Snakebite says, hey, David and chat, hope you are all well. So far, so good. Very rainy day today. Very busy day today so far. Very busy day so far. Now, this one I picked out because somebody was talking about it in the last chat. Not this one specifically, but a different one. And I think it was Greece or Italy. Let's see here. So 3 boats and at least 300 migrants missing at sea near Spain's Canary Island, aid group says. And since they had brought it up, they said, yeah, a boat with migrants disappeared. I want to say they said it was either Italy or Greece. This one's off the Canary Islands, and it's off the Canary Islands because a lot of migrants slip around that way to try to access Spain. Now, let's see what the article says, and then we'll talk about it a little bit. 2 boats, one carrying 65 people, the others with between 50 and 60 on board. Let's just be honest, all 3 of those boats had over 100 people. All right, because I know how those boats are. Have been missing for 15 days since they left Senegal. Helena Maleno of Walking Borders told Reuters a 3rd boat left Senegal on June 27th with 200 people. That's more realistic. The families of those on board have not heard from them since they left. All 3 boats left Kefonidi, I probably pronounced that wrong, in the south of Senegal, about 1,700 kilometers from Tenerife, one of the Canary Islands. The families are very worried. There are about 300 people. That's syntax error. They're about 300 people from the same area of Senegal. There are about 300 people. They have left because of the instability in Senegal. Yeah, this instability all over the world, sweetheart. The Canary Islands off the coast of West Africa have become the main destination for migrants trying to reach Spain. I was right about something. A much smaller number also seek to cross the Mediterranean Sea to the Spanish mainland. Listen, they're crossing over from everywhere in the Middle East to anywhere in Europe. Just say it, all right? Just be honest about that, because that's how it works. The thing is, the reason this stuff usually doesn't make the news is because it happens all the time. It happens all the time. A lot of these boats are not in very good condition. They sink, they disappear. They're migrants, so people don't care. This has been going on forever. In the 80s, in the 70s and 80s, it was Haiti. And they were turning up off of the coast of, I want to say off the coast of California, right? But a lot of Haitian migrants in the 70s and 80s. And there was down the street from where I grew up, part of the housing project was specifically for Haitian immigrants. And man, they were a pain in the butt. But boats used to disappear from them too. They would sink, or something tragic would befall them. You know, some of these waterways, especially out there are pirates. There are still pirates out there that might sink them on purpose, or, you know, after robbing them or something. So it's not a story you often see. Let's see. Bam says Kentaro Minura's art resonates with me. And then Urban says there's instability in British Columbia. Where can I claim refugee status? I can't help you, because if you if you were crossing into Canada, oh, well, they'll kiss your ass. But try to get out of Canada, and I don't blame you, because Canada's gotten weird. Canada, Australia, New Zealand, Great Britain, France is a war zone. That's something I could talk about, if not today, on another day. They're talking about, oh, there's riots in Paris. There's been riots in Paris for 4 or 5 years. When has it stopped? You want to act like it's a big deal now. But yeah, there's instability all over the world. And all they're doing is bringing their instability to us and making us pay for it. I don't want to pay for it. I know you don't. Fluke Man says lawmakers pay taxes too, but they can pay less or something. Well, they make more money for sure. They may and somehow manage to have more money than what their job justifies. I mean, if you have X amount, how do you end up millionaires? How do you end up millionaires? A lot of these lawmakers, these big ones, are millionaires, and there's no explanation for it. Yeah, they pay taxes too, but they make more. They have more security, more control, more security of job. I mean, even after leaving office, they're still collecting a check. It must be nice. I wish I could quit a job and keep getting paid. All People says Boston has a lot of Haitian migrants. They had them when I was a kid. Like I said, in the 70s and 80s growing up, there was a ton of them. And Cubans. A lot of Cubans in Boston. In the Allston-Brighton area, specifically, because I grew up in Allston in a housing development. Nice way of saying a project in Allston, although it wasn't a bad one. It wasn't like Mattapan or Roxbury, some of the places you see out there, or Forest Hills, because a lot of in my section was people with medical claims or elderly, and then there was a part that was divided off for Russians, a lot of Russians, Cubans, and then the Haitians way down the end on the left side. And they were really unruly. But he was going on Baltimore, a lot of Haitians, Nigerians, Liberians, Caribbeans, same for New York, Illinois, Georgia, Texas, sure, Arizona, Florida. Urban says, how does a socialist become a millionaire? It's a good question. By suppressing everybody else. I mean, you had millionaires and people in politics who were extremely wealthy in socialist and communist governments. It can be done especially if you're involved in politics, because then you're on the top of the food chain crushing everybody else. But yeah, they want you to be socialist, but they don't want to give anything up. They don't want to give up their money and their cars and their lifestyle. They want you to eat grasshopper meal bars, but they won't eat that. They're going to have steak and champagne and lobster. It's not going to change for them. That's the goal. You're the one that's going to change. When they say we need change, they mean you. Just like when they say honesty and transparency, they mean you. They don't mean them. But yeah, I mean, that is the operative question, Urban. How does a socialist become a millionaire? By being shady as hell. That's how. But anyway, I mean, this sort of thing, it's not big news because it does happen all the time. And typically nobody gives a damn because they're migrants from like third world countries that are a burden anyway when they arrive. And it's a shame. It's a shame, but that's just the honesty of it. That's just the reality of it. And when they're allowed into countries by those countries' governments, the United States, Canada, Australia, Great Britain, France, wherever, whoever, it's all political. It's not because they care about these people, although they will swear on a stack of Bibles, if they're not afraid to touch one, that, oh, we've got to take care of these poor downtrodden people. part of the reason that they're suffering as bad as they are is because of your interference in their government anyway. Part of it. Part of the reason. Not the entire reason. Let's keep that straight. But yeah, it's not unusual at all. But I mean, how much can you tolerate? How much can you absorb? Because many of these people, it's not like they're coming in here with skills, with skill sets or anything that's useful. A lot of them don't want to work. Why would they? Especially if they're going to be given a free ride. And there's that tie-in. All People says New Zealand is also WEF controlled and flooded with migrants. Yeah. And they don't see, once upon a time, and speaking on behalf of the United States anyways, people came here to become a citizen and went through the proper channels unless they were seeking political asylum. But then they still tried to integrate. They had some of their culture with them, but they tried hard to become an American. And they tried to bring some kind of skill set or do something, even if it was driving a cab. You know, I'll work. I'll learn the language. I'm trying. There was a pride there. Not anymore. Now they come and they want to turn your country into theirs. But you ran from your country for a reason. Why are you bringing all your bad habits with you? And we see this state to state also. Oh, I need to get the hell out of California. But you move to another state that doesn't have California's problems and contaminate it because you can't leave. For some reason, people can't leave that behind. Helter says, I've heard of cases of Arabian immigrant men raping, in Denmark and similar nations. The women forgive their assaulters. It boggles the mind. Do they, or are they coerced into it? Are they coerced into it by their government? All People says South Africa was originally empty when whites arrived. Africans were nomads in the mid-1800s that allowed black tribes in as refugees who outbred them in decades and took over. And then Urban says not every undocumented migrant has good intentions. Criminal gangs send their own to set up shop in whatever country is dumb enough to allow it. Yeah, I mean, some of them are honest, but many are not. And there's zero process to even try to figure it out now, unfortunately. If you're going to let them in, at least have some kind of vetting process. And Snakebite says there's still people who feel the need to contribute to society and would feel guilty for sitting on their ass 24/7. But of course, there are also many who just don't care. Exactly. And Preparedness Veteran has found us. Thanks for joining us, Preparedness. What channel are you watching this on? This is on both Coffee Talk and on Prepper University at the same time. Part of an experiment. And I had mentioned at the very beginning of this, for those of you who are just joining us, that on Coffee Talk, I am now, I believe, 8 in a row for strikes for the live streams. I've gotten a strike 8 times in a row for live streams. However, last live stream, I did like I'm doing today and broadcasted on 2 different channels. And Coffee Talk did get a strike, and Prepper University did not, for the exact same contest or content being broadcast at the exact same time. So if there's something wrong that I'm doing, it should have been a strike on both and was not. So yeah, that's called being targeted and being shadowed is what that is. All People says they're not fleeing the cultures of the nations or states. They're fleeing the results of their cultures. The same culture. Yeah, but I mean, you know what I mean. That's correct, but you know what I mean. And Paul says, hello from New Jersey. Thank you. Thankful for your channel. Well, I appreciate that. I'm just trying to have an open conversation and share thoughts and ideas is all it really is. Not telling anybody what to think. You don't have to believe me. You can research anything I'm talking about and help yourself. Moving on here on the subjects. This is another one that I caught, and this is on ABC News. So you know it's trustworthy. You can't trust any of them, honestly. I wonder how many people still don't realize that Fox News Network and CNN are both owned by the same media company. Let that sink in for a minute if you didn't know that. I thought this was interesting. And the reason this caught my attention was because I had renal stones. Oh, all people says was just trying to back up and support the point that you made about them. No, I understand, and I appreciate that. I was just saying, yeah, it's the same thing. It's the same thing, but yeah, no, you elaborated a little bit more, and I get it. No problem. All people. It says kidney stones in kids are on the rise, and I had renal stones, and I'll tell you something about them here in a minute that they don't tell you. And they call it kidney stones. It's renal stones is the correct. What the hell are they showing up here? What is this crap? Never mind. I don't want to know what that is. Chicago, so you know you can trust it. Kidney stones are usually an adult malady. False. I'll tell you right now. The first time I had renal stones, I was like 6. One that is notorious for causing excruciating pain. That's true. That is true. The pain can get to the point of delirium. It's been compared to childbirth. Pain worse than childbirth. Oh, well, there you go. See? Worse than childbirth. Yeah, I've heard of people passing out from the pain. But while the number of afflicted children isn't huge, kids with kidney stones have been turning up in rising numbers at hospitals around the country. At Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, the number of children treated for kidney stones since 2005 has climbed from about 10 a year to 5 patients a week now, said Dr. Casal. Johns Hopkins Children's Center in Baltimore, a referral center for children with stones, used to treat 1 or 2 youngsters a year 15 or so years ago. Now it gets calls about new cases every week, said kidney specialist Dr. New. In 2007, a study in the Journal of Urology, doctors at North Shore, Long Island Jewish Medical Center reported a nearly 5-fold increase in children brought in with kidney stones between 1994 and 2005. In 2005, 61 youngsters were treated there for stones. Now, is it really that there's more kids with stones, or is it just the referrals have shifted locations? Is that the case? That's a question I would ask, but I'm not in a position to ask these people. Preparedness says, damn painful, never heard of them in younger ones, normally in the 50s. Yeah, I had my first one when I believe I was 6. I believe I was 6 years old. Because I had just started first grade, and I had to get pulled out of school. And he says, I had one worse than being shot. Yeah, they are excruciatingly painful. BAM says Global Healing Center has a detox to kidney stones. Okay. And All People says kidney stones and gallstones seem to affect so many young people all of a sudden. Yeah, I wonder why. And yeah, chemical changes in the body can cause that to occur because it's not just calcium, but other minerals building up in the kidney. But it's not like a pearl, because that's an ulcer in a clam. It's like sometimes they're round, often they're misshapen, but usually they're smooth. A kidney stone is like a crystal, and it's got all these like points and sharp edges and stuff, and it's got to cut its way out. Unless it's so big it has to be operated on, it cuts its way out until it hits the bladder, and then it travels down the urethra and gets urinated out. So when it's cutting through the kidney, it's very painful. When it lands in the bladder, not so bad. But then you urinate it out, and hopefully it's not too big, because then it's going to scratch its way all the way through the urination process. And Dragon says, I experienced kidney stones once as a grown man. The pain had me crawling on the floor. However, I was told too much potassium, which didn't make sense. Okay. And Preparedness says, if they're below 10 millimeters, you could pass them. Yeah. let me see here. They're talking about seeing an increase. This doctor here, Dr. Hatch at Loyola University Medical Center, says youngest patient was a cranky 8-month-old girl whose mother found a pea-sized kidney stone in her diaper. I don't see how she could have passed a pea-sized stone. I know female urethras are a little wider, but not that wide. Kid stones have been the talk of recent pediatric kidney specialist conferences. Let me see. So far, the only evidence is anecdotal. They're trying to research and determine if the increase is real and not just the result of greater awareness and better ways of detecting stones. If you pass a stone, you know it. And if it's big, there's going to be blood. And if your kid's urinating blood, they're probably going to tell you, okay? Eating too much salt can result in excess calcium in the urine. In children, most stones are calcium-based. Eating habits, drinking too little water puts them at risk. This person, Maddie, is 8 years old, had 4 bouts with stones. And they're not giving you here really any explanation as to why. They're just trying to make it sound anecdotal, like that people are more aware of it somehow. Like people didn't know there was such a thing as kidney stones. I'm not buying that because I don't trust doctors or medical science. Anyway, Fluke Man says, what makes a right wing originally? I've seen videos calling people like Michael Knowles far right, but in my opinion, it's common sense and general knowledge, like stop training kids or transing. Yeah. What makes somebody right wing? When the media decides that they don't like your narrative, then they call you far right as to make it sound like something's wrong with you. It's the language structure. It's same as when people say that someone is uber liberal or super liberal now. That has a negative connotation. But to them, you being far right or right wing is negative because you go against the grain of how they believe. It's just wordplay, really. Yeah, Preparedness says new conspiracy theorist label. There you go, in a nutshell. But basically, again, a lot of with the renal stones can be attributed to diet and exercise. Are you drinking enough fluids? Are you eating healthy foods? Most young people are not. And also, what I have found, because I still get them, but they pass really fast. Feel a little bit I can sense it. It's not painful like it was when I was young. And the reason for that is because I'm athletic. If you are very physically active, they don't get the opportunity to start growing big. They never get the opportunity to start growing big. So diet and exercise. But now you have these flabby, lazy kids that eat garbage all day. Yeah, they're getting renal stones more often. Makes sense to me. And Fluke says, I meant everything MK has said. It's based on common sense and general knowledge. Yeah, but they don't want to believe that. They don't want to believe that if it goes against anything that they're saying or what their belief system is. That's why they attack, like, for example, if you were to bring up that homosexuality is a sin and it's in the Bible, and that's in Leviticus, they'll immediately attack you with the line about not mixing fabrics, which takes it out of context because the line about not mixing fabrics is used as a contrast for the idea of not of illicit mixing. Illicit mixing, a male using a male like a woman is illicit mixing in the Bible. Mating a donkey with a horse is illicit mixing. And you can see a reflection of this in the fact that if they do produce an offspring, which would be a mule, the mule is impotent. It's not capable of reproduction. If you mix illicit mixing a lion and a tiger, if they do reproduce, it will be a liger. A liger is impotent. It cannot reproduce. Just like two men cannot make a child, two women cannot make a child. But they're using illicit mixing as an example. But in the rules, mixing of two fabrics is a rule for Levites. It's a rule for Levites on the entering of certain parts of the temple. Try to get your priest or minister or pastor to explain that. Most of them have probably never read the Old Testament. All people is giving, talking about soaking their feet in a magnesium chloride or Epsom salts to detoxify, giving some advice there. Didn't mean to get all religious on you there, but I actually happen to know a lot about that kind of stuff. My wife and I will study intently. She actually has a degree from a seminary college, or university rather, not a college. She's a university graduate, and found that in seminary she didn't learn anything about the Bible. They teach you how to run a church, but they don't actually teach you anything about the Bible. And she wanted to learn, and I was curious, and we've been studying it intently for 10 years, languages, cultures, things like that. Where am I here? Helter says, I've heard that absurd bathroom policies wherein students are not allowed to go to the bathroom and another contributing factor to the rise of kidney stones in today's youth. I don't know about that, but we didn't want to go to the bathroom when I was in public school, because I don't know how it is wherever you are. Anyone here go to public schools in Boston? Tell me if you experienced this. Every public school I ever went to in Boston, there were no doors on the stalls in the boys' rooms. Nobody wanted to go to the bathroom. Nobody wanted to go to the bathroom. So I would attribute a lot of this to diet and exercise. With these young people, we're seeing lazier young people, lazier children. They're getting flabby. They're getting, or more flabby. They don't have really phys ed in a lot of these schools anymore. Phys ed is reduced to like once or twice a week, and it's some kind of weird class. I've seen some of that in Topeka. And All People says, we really appreciate you sharing your biblical knowledge. I've thought about doing like a segment on it. I had written down a bunch of stuff, things that I see. I've got it in one of these. I write everything down. I don't rely on machines. See, I've got like notepads full of stuff. And all of this right here is all things, because I got on a tangent a couple of weeks ago where I was frustrated watching some religious stuff on the YouTube, if you will. And I'm like, that's not right. No, that's not right either. Or that's not what that passage means. And these are ministers and pastors talking. And I was getting frustrated. And I started writing down everything that was wrong. And I was like, you know what? All of that, every one of these could be an individual topic in a discussion. But anyways, back to the point. Preparedness says bad or lack of a decent diet is responsible for a large portion of ailments. Very true. Very true. And Stever says the Overton window passed me by right to left out of the door and into the next town. But again, yeah, on the whole subject of religion, like for example, I just explained about the fabrics. Most people have no idea because they stop at the 10 Commandments and they don't even realize the 10 Commandments aren't commandments, because the proper translation is the words of God. And then after the 10 Commandments, which is like a preamble to the rules. Basically, it's almost as if God is sitting there saying, hey, here's what we're going to be talking about today. You already know some of this because the rules were known. They're mentioned all the way back in Genesis. You see, some people call them the Noahide laws, and even Cain was confronted. Like, basically, you know what the rules are. He's doing a sacrifice. He did it wrong. He knows what the rules were. The rules were known. So here's what we're going to be talking about today. Here's our rules. Here's our rules. And that's one of them, and it's for Levites and entering the Holy of Holies. But they'll challenge you with it because they know most people don't know. And they use that against you. They use their ignorance against them and their lack of knowledge and understanding in biblical things. And again, like I said, even pastors, ministers often don't know because in seminary they learned how to run a church. They didn't learn anything about the Bible. Oh, Doc is here. Thanks for joining us, Doc. And Bams wants to know, did you look into organ harvesting in Israel? No, I did not. I did not look into organ harvesting in Israel. Did we talk about that before? I might have forgotten, but I can look that up if there's a thing of interest there. I'm not for organ harvesting. I've talked about it before. I've talked about organ harvesting before. Because it's like one of the biggest scams going. We're living in a time now where you could 3D print freaking organs. You know what I mean? And they'll work because they're from your own body, but we're still going to hijack an organ from somebody else. I know it was donated, but they're going to take a donated organ from someone, charge a fortune for it, and then keep you on medications until the day you die so that your body won't reject it and try to kill it, which it does nonstop. You could lose your organ or your transplant from missing even a single dose of immunosuppressants. It's that bad because your body's fighting it constantly. Your body's fighting it constantly. And then you still have a very short life expectancy after the transplant anyway, most people. All People recommends reading the book Weapons of Mass Destruction, exposes the truth about the real purpose of Western public schools. Yeah, I'm not an advocate of public schools. I'm not an advocate for organ harvesting. I've mentioned before that when I worked at UPS, one of the trucks I used to load was full of organs that were harvested. They were the big white foam containers, and they were cold because they were packed with dry ice. And they said if one of them ever was leaking or had fluid on them, to shut the area down and call. They have a hazmat team on standby because it's human organs. The majority of it is sold to universities for experiments, and then the rest of it is sold to everybody else. So it's not like it's really even being donated. There's a lot of profit there. Zane has joined us. Hi, Zane. We're almost an hour into this today. Talking about kidney stones in young children because it's on the rise, evidently, or so they claim. And that's why Urban had made this comment. He says, to me, people under 20 seem like humpback thumb jerkers. Yeah, I didn't read it, but I put it up. And yeah, they're all bent over. A lot of them don't stand up straight. They've got cankles. There's no muscular definition. Blinders on. Because, if you're focused constantly, especially staring at a phone, you don't exercise your peripheral vision, so you're not aware of it. What are you doing? What's that? Sorry. It's Uncle here interfering with my microphone, but I think he's settled in again. Big boy. He's a good boy. He has become a permanent house cat at this point. He used to be feral. He was dangerous, but now he's like a huge baby. Zane says, I'd rather see 3D printed organs get more popular. Yeah, I mean, they can do it. It's been done. So I'm like, why are we still harvesting organs? Because there's more money in it. Because if you get a 3D printed organ from your own DNA, your body won't reject it. But if you harvest an organ from somebody and put it in another person, they're on medications for life, and that stuff is expensive. It's very expensive. Doc says blood works the same way. Big money. Yeah, there's huge money in it. And Arakel says, excellent discussions. Well, thank you, Arakel. I try. I try. I'm just sharing my thoughts. Bam says, hey, it's normal that kids have kidney stones and heart attack. Yeah, I know, huh? And strokes. Don't forget that. Remember, right about 2 years ago, we started seeing a lot of advertisements for recognizing adolescent stroke. And I'm like, who under the age of 12 on average has a stroke? That's very abnormal. And Oracle says how to deal with kidney stones during SHTF. Barley drink helps in mild cases. And then preparedness says lemon juice is something acidic apparently too. Yeah, and again, it all boils down to diet and exercise. Like I said, I get them. When I was a kid, it was excruciating. But when you're a kid, you don't know what to do. Now I do, and now I'm fairly athletic, so and have been for years. So if I start developing one, it doesn't last. It falls out rather quickly. And Urban said Dr. John Campbell always has the latest information on current medical repercussions of the you-know-what. Yeah. Yeah, we know what you're talking about. If anybody will listen, I can't talk about it. I get in trouble. I get in enough trouble here. And then Zane says, I've been talking to biohackers about 3D printed organs, and some have told me that various companies want to regulate it to hell and back. I bet they do. And it would work, and it would be a good idea, and it would come from your own body, and so you wouldn't reject it. But why would we do that when we can keep you addicted to medications for however long you live, which isn't always very long after the organ? And as I pointed out, and you can look this up again for yourself, if you miss even a single dose, it could cost you your life. Steve said, question, is there anywhere where you can buy pet antibiotics online without having to go through a vet? Sorry for the topic change. We have 4 feral cats and one has respiratory infection. Oh my God. There is someplace. I'm trying to remember because you can't get them anymore. I will tell you, and this is all off the record. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm not giving medical or veterinary advice. But my understanding, which I have tested and found to be true, but I'll just say it's my understanding, is that fish antibiotics work. I have found this to be true myself. You can't get those even anymore. If you can't, you used to be able to get it on eBay and Amazon. You can't, but there are online services where you can order them. And I would say not through Chewy or one of the big regulators, but you can order them, and they'll come in a capsule, and you break the capsule open and mix it in the food and dose it like you would with normal antibiotics. But you can find that online and get it shipped to you quickly. But again, because of preppers, the eBay and Amazon won't do it anymore. You have to provide a prescription, even for like the fish stuff. Y says sister had a stroke at something around 12 to 14. Doctors couldn't stress enough how abnormal it was. Yeah, and not anymore apparently. And they say that was in 2006 or so. Yeah, Doc says Big Pharma needs that money. Yeah, there's massive money in those immunosuppressors. And then you're sick all the time and you feel weak all the time. And do-it-yourself insulin. Oh, God, Zane, I don't know about that one. And Raquel is giving you some advice on that. and Zane as well. So yeah, look through the comments section. And see some more advice on that subject. Now, this is the other one that caught my attention. Somebody asked me to show this one. It says, Michigan residents face 5 years in prison and a $10,000 fine for using wrong pronouns. Now, this is not something that I think is going to happen. I don't think this would pass. However, it's an attempt to set precedents, but it's too broad. It's too broad. There's no way you could make this make sense, and there'd be too much backlash. But they'll attempt it anyways. Michigan residents could be slapped with a 5-year prison sentence or a whopping $10,000 fine for calling someone their non-preferred gender pronoun under a new bill. And what's to stop somebody from claiming that they were just to cause trouble? Michigan's House of Representatives has passed a hate speech bill known as HB 4474, criminalizing the use of hate speech. Unbelievable. This means that if anyone uses words causing someone to feel terrorized, frightened, or threatened, including using a gender pronoun the threatened person does not identify with, they could end up with jail time. The bill lists sexual orientation and gender identity or expression as protected classes. Oh, protected class citizens. I wish I had some of that. Offenders could face up to 5 years in prison for committing such a felony offense. They could also be slapped with a staggering $10,000 fine. The fine's not as bad as the prison. And how do you define how someone claims they feel? So I'm going to be penalized because someone has a weak disposition or is pretending to. Is that the idea? Because they will fake it. Oh God, I was so terrified because they called me sir instead of madam. And they'll cry and carry on just to cause problems, just to get attention, just to hurt someone. The bill reads, intimidate means a willful course of conduct involving repeated or continuing harassment of another individual that would cause a reasonable individual to feel terrorized, frightened, or threatened, and that actually causes the victim to feel terrorized, frightened, or threatened. You can't determine if it did actually cause them or not. The bill passed in the Democratic-controlled House 59-50. It's now set to move to the Michigan State Senate for further reading. I can't see it really honestly passing, though. It would be signed into law by Democratic State Governor Gretchen Whitmer if it passes. Penalties would be based on how the victim and court would feel about individual cases. That's insane. Large swaths of Republicans have erupted in fury. I'm sure only Republicans are upset about that, right? At the bill largely pushed by Democrats, big surprise, arguing it encroaches on civil liberties and is a barrier to freedom of expression. Freedom of expression. And, basically you're telling me that if this was law when I was a kid, everybody who picked on me in school, I could have sent to jail. You know what I mean? Unbelievable. As I flip through some of these, let's put a few of your posts up. One first day violation. Yeah, but doesn't stop them. I get violated all the time in here. And Bams identifies as a flying squirrel. I identify as a millionaire. Where's my damn money? Where's my money at? And Dragon says this is dangerous and reckless law. The governor should be impeached. Well, it's not signed in. I'm just I don't think it will be. And if it did get signed in, it would get rejected. Some judge in that state would say, no, that's unlawful, and it would get kicked around, but it would be sitting there gaining precedence anyways, which is all they really want. Yeah. Raquel says, myself stocked up before the ban on fishy amoxicillin. And where are we here as I catch up? Stever says, much appreciated. Yeah, absolutely. And Helter says, all the pronoun nonsense is nothing more than narcissistic power play. And Urban says, Canada is at the forefront of creepy bills becoming law. Didn't they pass something about bestiality there? Urban, correct me if I'm wrong. I had heard that. Cole says, be mindful when taking antibiotics. If there's not an acute need for them, you would just be destroying healthy bacteria. That's true too. After you've done taking antibiotics of any kind, you should take some probiotics to help to restore your gut anyways. Because especially if there's that's the thing, if there's nothing for the antibiotics to attack, it will go after your stomach bacteria. It'll go after your stomach bacteria. But yeah, you can't get logic out of people's feelings about things. And Republican State Representative Steve Carra told CBS News Detroit, threats and violence and things of that nature and protecting against crime is certainly something that we absolutely should be doing in Michigan, but we shouldn't be building that around an individual's feelings of being frightened. And again, as I pointed out, especially since they're probably not going to be honest about it. They'll lie. If they think they're going to get someone in trouble, if they think they're going to get attention, people will lie about that sort of thing. They'll lie. So you can't trust it. And this person here says the state of Michigan is now explicitly allowing the gender delusion issue to be used as a protected class. This opens up numerous issues when it comes to the courts and the continued weaponization of the system against conservatives. Not just conservatives, but basically everybody. And that door has already been kicked open. And that's from Republican Representative Angela Regas. But yeah, that door has already been swung wide open, honey. I'm sorry. And it's not just conservatives that it's against, because people on the Democratic side, if you will, or the left-leaning side, a lot of them don't agree with that stuff either. But as many people as there are that don't agree with it, most people are afraid to speak against it. Most people are afraid to speak against it. And Joint is saying people can make honey fermented garlic. Recipe is online. And then Helter says, I refuse to respect people who use their appearance as a form of deception. I refuse to play along with who insist I learn some babyish new language which only belongs in their fantasy world. Yeah, I don't blame you. And that's really kind of the problem, isn't it? Is that they're drawing you into their fantasy. They want to pretend something. And because you won't play with them, they want you to be punished for it. Jimmy won't play with me. He says I'm not a girl and I'm pretending that I am. I want him to be punished. And Jimmy is getting punished for it. We are being punished for it. We are being forced to go along and play along with something that we don't agree with. Listen, you want to go and pretend you're this and that? Go. But you don't have to suck me into your fantasy. I don't have to go along with it. I shouldn't have to go along with it. Flute Man says, instead of harvesting organs, wouldn't it be better if everybody automatically gets enrolled for donations, but we all should be given the option to opt out, or like 3D printing with your DNA be better? I would say 3D printing it is better if they automatically enroll you, then, opting out isn't so simple. And yeah, anything where they automatically enroll you in something, I don't think is a good idea, because it opens the door for a lot of other things. Many states automatically enroll you or register you to vote when you get a driver's license now. And the process for opting out once that happens is extremely difficult. It's extremely difficult because my wife has been going through that process for months. She was automatically enrolled when she transferred her driver's license, and she spent like 6 or 7 months trying to get it undone. And it's always an excuse. There's always a damn excuse. And now you're talking about cutting organs out so that they can sell them and get people hooked on, or force people onto medications to keep them alive. Shady. Doc says no one wants to recognize that the pretenders seem to be on a rampage as of late regarding shooting people and their gender. Yeah, gender dysphoria is actually a mental illness. A lot of things used to be called mental illnesses, and they're not anymore. At the risk of getting into trouble here. Yeah, how do I explain this? All of these things used to be classified as mental illnesses until about the 90s. Because there is a board, I forget what it's called, but there's a board of regents within the medical industry in mental health that votes on what is and is not mental health and how it should be classified. And they decided to vote all of this rainbow stuff away from being classified as mental illnesses or mental deficiencies. And it was because that board had more or enough people connected to those communities to politically shift that decision. And that's why we're where we are now. And if without digging too deep into that, another thing that I'll point out that I think is really interesting is the interview series that I did with the Boston Phoenix newspaper back in I've brought this up before, 1990, 1991, the transitioning people that were interviewed, every single one of them claimed to have been molested by their investigating psychologist. Every one of them, as a stipulation for getting their medications and reassignment surgeries. It eventually came up at some point, because back then it used to take 2.5, 3 years of psychological evaluations and meetings with psychologists and things like that before they would even consider it. It's not like now where they're like, oh, Timmy thinks he's a girl. Okay, let's start chopping stuff off, like it is now. It used to be a long, drawn out process. But back then, every single one of them said that their psychiatrist put them in a position where they were coerced into sexual favors in order to get their prescriptions. Let that sink in. Urban says, not sure if anything lately has changed in Canadian law regarding animal abuse, but in 19, there was more protection added for animals by extending the definition of bestiality under criminal law. Okay. I don't know. I'll have to look that up. I had just heard that. And Oracle, anything involving mental asylums is creepy, though. And Zane disagrees on trans issue things. That's okay. You can disagree if you want to. Everybody is entitled to an opinion. And Travel Guy says hello to David. And D'Lo made it late. That's unfortunate because I'm about to get off. I got to go do something here in a minute. Cole says, I plan on working in the field, and it's disheartening to me to see increased clinical tolerance for issues that can be effectively treated. But yeah, some of you guys are late to the party. I'm sorry to hear that, or I'm sorry to see that as I'm reading it. but I do have to get off because I have some other things that I need to do. But we'll try to do this again sometime soon, and I will keep you abreast of whether or not Prepper University got in trouble. Because again, Coffee Talk has been getting slammed, but when I did the last live stream and I put it on both channels, Prepper University did not get into trouble. Did not get into trouble. So I'm going to go ahead and sign off, and maybe we'll get a chance to do this again sometime soon.